You touched upon the quasi-causal experiments, right? I mean, there are two ways to establish causality. One is your traditional experiments, RCTs, and then you have the quasi-causal experiments. In your experience, which one have you first of all used more, or have seen used more, and why?
Yeah, I love this question. So my take is, I think, similar to yours, but all the models have strengths and weaknesses. So I'm teaching also a lot, and I've been teaching for, I'm not sure, maybe the last 10 years, maybe a bit less,
Mhm.
to experienced medical researchers who will basically be PI of a lab with animals to test drugs and different things in medical research. So I've been teaching biostatistics for them. So of course, causality is central because most of the time you want to understand cause of issues and consequence of some effect of some drugs or behavioral change and things. And basically, the thing is, the vast majority of people in these labs will work with what we call inbred strains of rats. So basically, rats that are, or mice that are almost clones. They are inbred for like 30 generations. They're almost cloned. They have the same
Mhm.
poor lab life with the same food. So basically, there you are very close with randomized control trials in the medical sector. Most of the time, you're very close to the parallel worlds. Everything is very similar. If it's done well, you still have many things that can go wrong, but that's a different topic that we can get later. But let's assume everything is done well. You have a very strong, what we call internal validity. It's very close to the parallel world. You can claim causality with a very high level of reliability and trust. But this often comes at the cost of external validity. The fact that now you have a very strong evidence for these very similar rats. But what about a different breed of rats, of mice? What about humans? The external validity is a huge, so the capacity to extrapolate beyond the scope of the study is a huge topic and often a weakness in randomized experiments. In this type of experiment. In marketing, it's not the case. Why? Because most of the time, if you A/B test your Netflix, you A/B testing, the unique thing is that you're testing your treatment directly on your target audience in the wild while they are using the app without them knowing it. So basically, here you have both. In this specific setting of randomized experiments with online platform with a large set of customers, you and large sample size, you have both. You have large external validity. Basically, it's you're testing exactly what you want to test in the wild, and internal validity because you're able to randomize well. So this is one different thing. But then back to quasi-experimental methods. So the thing is, in many situations, you cannot randomize, or randomization has some, or this, some limitation. For example, you cannot randomize, I don't know, you have a few shops and you want to change the layout within the shop. You cannot really, due to many technical constraints, you won't randomize between shops most of the time or have enough large sample size. So sometimes it's not possible to randomize. And sometimes it's not ethical. I mean, in research, you're not going to expose humans to high, lethal, dangerous dose of pollutants. You're going to do this with the rats, but not to humans. So then you have another family of method to assess causality, which is what I've done the most in my career as a researcher. It's quasi-experimental methods. It's when you exploit observational data to uncover causality. I've done this initially for big research questions like what's the effect of COVID lockdowns on the spread of the virus? What's the effect of sending weapons on the probability of conflict? These are things that you're not going to randomize. So you really need observational data to be able to uncover causal effects. And again, in marketing, it's also a very powerful set of tool to complement your tool set, toolbox, where you cannot randomize, and to complement MMM, for example, sometimes you want to use these quasi-experimental models. So that's basically how I see it. It's really different tools with different pros and cons.
Yeah, I mean, I see that, in marketing, we can never do RCTs because, of course, you can randomize people, as you just alluded to, the Netflix example, you can randomize really well, but can you control the people? that's the big question, right? You cannot control their behavior. You cannot obviously imprison them and say that, hey, you're going to watch only these ads, for the next 1 week, or let's say 1 month. You can never do that. And there will always be a violation of satwa, right? I mean, of course, we're going to talk about all these technical terms down the line. But yeah, I think given those constraints, quasi-causal experiments, are the best fit for marketing, I would say.